I think the other quarterback coming in was a major distraction. I think that was a major challenge to everybody. It was just a natural challenge, and that's what Tim brings. He's an extraordinary player and individual. That's just a huge factor. I think that would affect anybody somewhat. I think that affected their whole football team. That's Pete Carroll talking about his former quarterback's mindset. Stephen A., are you okay with his comments about Sanchez?
No, I'm not. I think he's right in what he's saying. I stand by the veracity of his statements. I just don't want to hear them from him. Coming out of USC, having 16 career games. He started the last full season, okay? Just one season as the full-time starter, just 16 games as a college quarterback, Skip. That's all Mark Sanchez had on his resume. But still in all, obviously he elected to enter the NFL draft in 2008. Who was the person that spoke out adamantly against him? It was Pete Carroll. By the way, did so in what some would believe or term as a very classless manner, because he did it during the day in a press conference when he was Mark Sanchez was announcing that he was leaving to go pro. You know, you would think that somehow, some way, you know, that day you would celebrate the job the dude did for you while at USC, but instead, that day, Pete Carroll elected to rain on his parade, as they say. And that's all I'm talking about here. You can sit there and talk about how he did a good job and all of this other stuff, but you were the one that said he wasn't going to do good. You were the one that said he was not ready, that he, you know, staying an additional year would have benefited him tremendously, and that you questioned whether or not he was going to succeed at the next level because he was leaving your program early. So I'm not saying that what Pete Carroll is saying right now is inaccurate. That's clearly not the case, because we know it to be true based on what we've seen the Jets do with him last year. And the fact that they brought in Tim Tebow was definitely a huge, huge distraction, because psychologically, we've all questioned Mark Sanchez. We all knew this. So bringing Tim Tebow in wasn't going to help him. It was only going to make matters worse, and that's exactly what proved to happen. It's just that Pete Carroll could have done a lot to help the situation, and he certainly did not. Not when Mark Sanchez was leaving his program at USC, which is why I don't want to hear from him on this particular matter.
Have you thought that maybe this was a mea culpa from Pete Carroll? This was, I was wrong about Mark leaving early, that Mark played way better than I thought he could play, even though the Jets were a much better team? Maybe this was his backdoor way of supporting Mark now, because he didn't support his decision back when at USC to leave USC. And obviously, Pete didn't want him to leave because it was self-serving, because he thought Mark was positioned to have a Heisman Trophy kind of year, and maybe they could win it all the next year with Mark as a growing college quarterback, right?
Probably so. I mean, that's a very valid point on your part, but my point is that only buffers the point that I made. First of all, it was self-serving. Let's make sure we put that out there, okay? I agree. If indeed that were the case. If indeed that were the case. Secondly, and more importantly, when you talk about a mea culpa, well, what kind of mea culpa is that? Isn't it, aren't you a bit 4 years late to the party? You want to speak up now that, you know, Mark Sanchez has regressed, completed just 54% of his passes, being one of the worst quarterbacks in the league, introducing us to the butt fumble. Never heard of a butt fumble until Mark Sanchez came along and did it on Thanksgiving, and had the nerve to do it on Thanksgiving night when all of us were eating our turkey. Okay? So that's when he did it. So all of that, I'm just saying. That's what he did. So all of those things being considered, if you're Pete Carroll, where are you in year one? Where are you in year two when he went to the AFC Championship game both years? I didn't see Pete Carroll speaking up then. I didn't hear anything from him then. Maybe I missed it. Maybe it happened and I didn't notice it. But I didn't hear any comments from Pete Carroll then. Here we are, now that Mark Sanchez is every bit as awful as Pete Carroll basically surmised he would be. Now we hear from you, but we didn't hear from you when he was winning? I don't know what kind of mea culpa that to you, but it ain't much of one to me.
Don't you like it now that Pete Carroll, with a really good football team, is supporting Mark Sanchez? Doesn't that carry some new weight for you?
No.
It does for me.
Because, listen, Skip, if I'm a big-time coach at a program, right, and I believe that this dude has left my program and ultimately contributed to its disintegration to some degree, because it certainly did disintegrate, but you know what I'm saying. If your departure contributes to its demise, and then after that you go to the NFL and you prove me wrong, your first 2 years I say nothing, okay? Then I come to the NFL and all of a sudden I'm balling. My team is balling better than your team is, and I'm having more success as a coach than you certainly are having as a quarterback. And then suddenly after that, you want to throw out a mea culpa. Really? That resonates with you? It doesn't with me.
Okay, but I do like the fact that one man and only one man is supporting Mark Sanchez right now, because we certainly know nobody in New York is supporting Mark Sanchez. Pete Carroll is. Pete Carroll has a team position. Well, it's right now in the offseason. It had the best offseason, and in the power rankings, it's #1. So he is speaking from a position of strength, and he is defending his ex-USC quarterback. And Stephen A.
Really?
Yeah. And he's speaking a truth that I haven't heard a lot of people speak, and I agree with it. It was a disastrous disservice to Mark Sanchez to sign Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow is a force of nature. I'm sorry. He is not a backup quarterback. If you're going to bring him in, you better play him. I say they should have played him early last year. They chose not to. It destroyed Mark Sanchez coming off a pretty weak year to begin with. What was he, 26 touchdowns to 18 interceptions the year before. They go 8-8 and miss the playoffs. So he's teetering already. We know he's not the mentally toughest young man. And all of a sudden, you got Tim Tebow looking over your shoulder every day in practice, every game. Good luck with that. He crumbled under that pressure, and his ex-coach is trying to say, hey, give him a little bit of break here. A lot of quarterbacks would have crumbled under that pressure.
Well, listen, how come Pete Carroll didn't give him a break when Seattle stomped on them when they came to Seattle earlier this year? You know what I'm saying? I mean, do you see Pete Carroll rallying to get Mark Sanchez to Seattle? Nope. He probably want him in the division so he can go against him. So the fact that he's praising Mark Sanchez should mean nothing to us. That's nonsense, okay? So he's just blowing smoke and, call it taking care of one of your own, whatever the case may be. Bottom line is Mark Sanchez got to play better. He's got things to prove. He was sabotaged by the New York Jets. There is no doubt about that. But Pete Carroll making this statement, talk about being late to the party, man, please.
Okay.
If you wanted to really resonate and say words that meant something, you should have said something the first 2 years when Mark Sanchez actually looked like an NFL quarterback.
Okay, I will admit what I like most about what Pete Carroll said was Tim Tebow is an extraordinary player and individual.
Uh-huh.
I agree. Thank you, Pete.
Thank you, Pete. He's
I
finally on board.
respect your honesty. I respect your honesty.